So as we know, October is approaching very soon, which I believe it's hard to believe. But obviously, we all know what October is. It's the budget. It's when the government, sometimes when they feel generous, when there's an election. Let's be fair. When there's an election, they throw a load of money around to buy people's votes, because that's what happened in last November. They threw money at everybody and hoped that they would vote for Fianna Fáil again. A lot of elderly people, not so much young people, voted for Fianna Fáil because they were pretty much blindsided by money, and just kind of bribed into voting for them. Like let's call it what it was. Nobody voted them out of the free will because they got an extra 5 year on their pension, etc. And everybody voted for them because then obviously people in job seekers, etc. But of course, the budget this year, because there's no election this year apart from the presidential election. But again, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil really doesn't really give a shit, because the presidency, it's not really any political office. They don't really care about it. They only cared about the Dáil and the Shannon, getting the seats in the Dáil and the Shannon. They didn't care about They don't really care about the presidency, because the presidency, it doesn't achieve anything. Obviously, it's good for them to want to have it, but it's not something that's necessary for them to keep going and to keep power, etc. in the state. So they're pretty much throwing everybody under the bus now, because as we know, the price of food is skyrocketing, meat, etc. People are struggling. Like people are struggling. There's thousands. Like even just a report today, there's thousands of parents borrowing money to send their children back to school, because of course it takes money to send children to school, even though it's supposed to be free education. It takes money to buy new school shoes, new uniform, new books, whatever they may want. It all takes money. Then paying insurance, all that. It takes a lot of money. Um, and the government pretty much saying, fuck you, we don't care about you. The nicest possible term, through the Irish people, of course, not anybody else. There's money for everybody else. They're going to give loads of money to Ukrainians, etc. That's not going to change. Don't worry about that. If you're afraid of Ukrainians or into going homeless, and don't worry about that. They'll be well looked after. But Irish people won't be looked after. You'd be left to walk on the street. So great stuff. But just putting it plainly out there, like they won't cut the asylum. You think they would say, we need the money, we give it to the Irish people. The Irish people work for this money. We should cut the wet provision, take all the money away from that and send a lot of them home and give the money to the Irish people. They won't do that, of course not. Because, they have a too good to tell answer their friends in the iPass sectors, in terms of the people who own the iPass sectors have become a multi-millionaires because the government just flinging money at them. But there's no money for an ordinary Irish person that's struggling to make ends meet, a family, an Irish family. Not a hope. There's no money for them. The only hope is to get on the boat and go, and that's the sad reality. And then, not to mention electricity too. Most likely probably will go up in the next few months too. And then obviously the carbon tax, obviously coming into the winter time, a lot of people is going to be struggling to keep the fire on, keep the heating on in the house, because it was a good summer, so it's probably going to be bad weather, give or take. We see what happens. But nonetheless, it's going to be a few cold nights coming into the winter in December, or even August. God, let's hope the weather stays up a bit longer. But still, it's coming into the winter now. And we have to think about that. But as I say, it's not really good enough, to be totally honest, because the government are using the argument at the moment, but it was just convenient for them to use that Trump's tariffs. We can't give any money to anybody, pretty much. But let's be fair, they didn't want to give it in the first place because there was no election. There was no need for them. Last year they threw money everywhere because they needed votes, because they knew they were in trouble, and they needed to buy people's votes to get in. But in this election, they don't care because it's the presidential election. If there's a general election in the morning, there'll be money flying everywhere. There'll be money everywhere. But they just don't care. Simple as that. They just don't care. The presidency to them it's only a constitution. It is only a constitutional role, and it's pretty much a figurehead, and there's no powers. So why would they bother giving loads of money to Irish people? Because again, they hate Irish people. They hate you. They hate me. They hate Irish people. They like everybody else, but they despise people who like sovereignty and freedom and independence. They hate that. So why would they give it to Irish people? They hate the foundations of us. They hate the whole society. So why would they give us money and your allowances and look after us when we're struggling to pay the bills? They don't care. And again, the government have been in the last 6 months. Nothing has changed. Prices are still going through the roof. People still can't afford to pay the rent. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed in any sort of way to help anybody. We're 6 months on, and we're near enough 6 months, November, and nothing has changed. So it's great. Democracy works sometimes. But anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe for more, and hopefully they do maybe change their mind, because there's really behind all this, there's people struggling. There's young Irish families struggling to make ends meet, pay the bills, and even take for example food. It isn't easy, particularly for young families. And not even that, for people who are on low wages and stuff, Irish people that are on low wages, they should be probably looked after more than people coming in 5 minutes ago, given a house, etc. That shouldn't be happening, of course. Anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe for more, and bye.